Hello YouTube, I just wanted to do a quick video on the newer Hugo templating system. I also wanted to show how to install Hugo on a distribution that's not packaged for, such as Fedora KDE here. Uh, you can get through the Fedora repo, uh, among others, but sometimes it's not the most up-to-date version. It's sometimes better to get directly from the source here. So on the Hugo website, gohugo.io, you click Getting Started, Quick Start, Install Hugo, Linux. You may need to set up some prerequisites if some stuff doesn't work correctly on it. Um, Under pre-built binaries, latest releases, then you have to do some deciphering to figure out what file you need. Uh, Usually I go with Linux or the extended version, Linux, then AMD 64 because I'm usually on a regular like AMD or Intel processor. That's one that you'd use for that. And then the tar.gz file, the .dev files for if you're on Ubuntu or Debian or anything that supports that. Um, that's easier to install actually. Uh, then like the ARM 64 is like if you're on like a Pinebook Pro or an SoC computer like a Raspberry Pi or something like that, that should work for you there. And with that download, I already did download it. We'll have to extract it here. So I'm already in. I'll clear this, but I'm already in the directory. I just did a sudo -s to get into root, and then I went into the directory. The slash USR is the Unified System Repository in Linux. Then after that, local. So slash USR slash local, that specifies that for the package manager not to mess with that directory. And slash bin, that's where the binary files go for stuff that the package manager shouldn't touch. So we'll do tar extract verbose zipped or compressed file slash home slash your username. Replace this with your username, of course. Then downloads, then Hugo. Then we'll extract just the Hugo file out of that. -C to specify the directory to extract into, and then /. That's listed in there. And now if I run Hugo version, we have some output from that. So that means Hugo's installed. So we'll move on to the next part here. So now moving on to actually using Hugo. So I don't think I explained what Hugo was in the previous part. Hugo is a static site generator. So it allows you to use your own HTML, JavaScript, and CSS code to generate a static site that then you can just upload to the web host. Why would you do that instead of just doing everything in HTML? It makes it a lot easier for content-driven sites. So you can use Markdown or something that's easier to edit. I think you can use Emacs org mode as well. You might need to set that workflow up, but by default, Hugo uses Markdown files. And I'll show you in a moment how to do that. So first we need to create a new Hugo site. You can create the file tree for a Hugo site manually, or you can use a built-in Hugo site generator. So you can use Hugo new site, then the uh, directory where you want it. So if you just put a dot in, it will create it right in the directory that you're in, which I'm already in. As you can see, I created the folder structure. So hugo.toml, these are like your site settings. So you can specify your base URL. That's where after you've deployed the site, that's where it's going to end up. So that way it knows to set those variables. So the reason why you set it in here instead of hard coding it into your layouts is because if you ever change it, you only have to change it here and you don't have to change it every place in your layout. My Hugo site will just do or something like that. So themes, that's if you want to put a theme in or theme that someone else created, you can uh, clone it into there and then you can specify a theme in this file and the folder name under themes where the theme resides and it'll uh, load from that theme, but we're going to create custom layouts in this video. Layouts is where essentially your HTML templates go, and assets is where your asset files go. So this will be like your CSS and JavaScript. We'll just create a couple in here. Just so that we know later on. Then static, those are your static files. Those are files that you can put in your root or subfolders under it that Hugo won't actually touch. So like if you're gonna, for instance, what I use this for is on my own personal site, I have a web apps folder in here and any web apps I program in like React.js or something like that, I put in there so then Hugo doesn't touch it or try to process it in any way. So under layouts, we'll create um, a base of. So that is the file that Hugo will base everything else off of. I'll just use the Emmet template to start out with. Uh, so one thing when you're using Hugo, you don't really want to hard code some values in them, site title being one of them. So site title is what shows up. So for those not familiar, that's what shows up here on your web browser. Because we want to be able to override this later, we'll create a block and we'll name it title. And we need to project it out to the current page context. So that's what this dot is. It's telling it like, hey, whatever you do here, utilize it on the current page. And then you have to do it on block for blocks. So these double curly braces are specifying that this is going to execute in Hugo code. Then it's going to output what's inside of it. But inside of a block, you can use more template code. So we can do dot title, which will print out the page title. We'll do a bar and dot site, which will do the for the whole site, and then the dot title. So that dot site, dot title, that's going to pull from here. So that's pretty much all you got to do for the title block. Now handling assets, since this gets a little complicated, we'll do a partial. And then we'll do head, see, we'll just do like assets or something. Then partials also need the current page context. So I'll put the dot in there. So partials under layouts underscore partials. Then we'll do head and assets .html. So I'll create that folder. And now we can start handling our assets. So we'll use a whiz block for that. Then we'll do resources. So resources is a site or is the object for the resources, the site-wide resources so that you can pull those, and those would be in your assets folder. So resources.get instructs your resources repo or your site resources repo to get a specific resource. And that's going to grab the main.css that we created earlier. That also needs an end block. And now we're going to check if Hugo, that's the Hugo instance object, is development. And uh, that needs an end block as well, so we don't forget it later. We'll just put it in now. We'll make that a CSS link. And we'll just do then if the is development value is false, we can just do an else for that. Oops. And now inside of a Hugo code block, if there's code that you want to do first, you can put it in parentheses. And we'll just do the current context. So it's using the context of this CSS file. We're going to fingerprint it. And we're going to do the rel permalink of that. So that's going to change the name of it whenever the contents change. So that if you update the CSS along with your content, uh, clients shouldn't be trying to use their cache version of it. And we'll do that for the JavaScript. And black. So our current assets are handled now, except for me forgetting to put the end block for the if statement, so we don't run into errors later. Now we're getting into the content of it, so let's do a header here, and we'll do a partial. And we'll create that under the partials. Just don't really need to do that actually. So we'll just do for now H1. Create the nav there. So now we want to get into menus for the nav. So we can range the site.menus.main. And now we'll want to do some if logic here too. Um, so we'll do an if or, then we'll do page, which is the current page object, and we'll do is menu current. So this is going to check to see if the page is mapped on the menu or not, or is the current one that's mapped on the menu. So the whole page that's rendering is checking is menu current against main menu, and as well as the current page of the range. Then we'll do page that has menu current. And same thing for that. And this is going to check to see if any of its parent pages are in the current menu context. And the reason why we're doing that is so that we can mark which one is active on an AF bar. So we'll do this .url for menu item to do the current one's URL, and then we'll just do .title. Now we can do an else block. Then we gotta do an end for the if block. Now let's get into the content here. This is creating a block for the main area, and then end. Now let's create a footer. Now since we want to possibly do custom content for the footer, we can do with block that site, so that'll be site-wide dot get page. And that'll grab the file name footer. Or actually, we can actually do this inside of a div. Just so it's separate. And we'll do paragraph tag, um, copy right character, the now object, so that's the current time of it being built. Then we'll pull the year value from that. And now we'll get into custom site params. So in the hugo.toml, we can specify a param section, like so. And we can do like something like author. And we can use some Hugo code here to do .site, .P params, .author. And they'll specify that we just put in. So now that pretty much completes the Baseof part anyway. So now we'll move on to creating primary page layouts. So you have a few of them. So page is what's also known as like a single page. That's a page that you're not expected to have pages underneath of it. So we'll just do that, and then we'll uh, define main. So I'll define the main block. Otherwise, it'll completely override it. And they'll just do with the ID of page title. And do an H1 of that title. And then we'll render the content. I don't think I did the main and the, yeah, I didn't do the main tags in the, so it'll be semantically correct here. Then we'll create one for the home page. So that'll just be home.html. Then we'll do a define for the title block as well. Because for the main page, we just want to do .site, .title. And when I do these dashes, it just takes up white space. So you can do them on either side, and they'll take up white space on that side. I'll create another layout, and we'll name this one section. So this is a page that is going to have other pages underneath of them. Just in case we ever end up with more than one on the same page, we'll just do it as a class instead. So now we'll get into another arrange function. Regular pages is any regular page under it, so it excludes tag pages and stuff like that. You can use a rel permalink attribute. since it's essentially a resource instead of a menu item. Then we can use the .title to get that page's title. And we can do a sort by title. And that'll do a section. We also need terms. We'll need to change this to just pages for the terms page. Otherwise, it'll filter out all the actual terms on there, since they are tag pages. And it'll do the taxonomy of those. I believe you can leave as regular pages. So that's most of the pages that you need. And now we can start creating content. Archetypes is what your content is based off of if you use Hugo to create the content files. I'm going to change this to false now just so that I don't have to keep changing it during this demonstration. But when you create content, you usually want to have to change that to false. Now just using a regular Hugo new will create a content file. So you can create a home page by doing Hugo new underscore index.md. And in the front matter of it, we can change the title of the page to home. We can also do menu main, and we'll specify a weight on that menu of 1. So that puts it first and foremost, and we can do this as the home page. So now if we do Hugo server, it'll host a server. I have it shorthanded to HS, so it removes a public directory after I close out of the server. And then we can go to it here. So that's a website that we just made, and I can change this. And once I save it, it'll rebuild. And I can do that if I want to put a footer on there. I can do Hugo new footer.md. But now if I do Hugo server again, I'll refresh this. You can see that change. So that's how you bring in like values from page files into your template, is what we did earlier with the footer here. So that site dot get page footer content, or we can put a placeholder in its place. The issue too, though, is now with that there, it will have that file in there. If you don't want that to be the case, uh, you can edit this file and then do build options. So build section, then render, and we'll set that to never. So now if I try to do, or I'll have to page not found. This leads me to, you can do custom 404 pages as well. So essentially I'll build one here. So custom 404 page, depending on your web server, you'll have to change values on that, or you'll have to do a .htaccess file to redirect to the 404.html. But under layouts, if you just create a 404.html file, and we'll just do define main. We'll do a define title too. So that should change that. Now we'll do the main block. And this will be a little bit of a tidbit you can do with JavaScript too. The and we'll give that the ID of PH404 placeholder 404. And we'll just leave that blank for now. And we'll do and this is what I was talking about the links earlier. If you want a link to go home, you just set the href to .site .base URL. Capital B, then URL is all capitalized. So if you ever change that in Hugo.toml, it'll automatically change it here. So we'll save that for now, and then in our JavaScript file, we can do something like we'll just do an anonymous function. Then we'll do const ph404 equals document dot get element by ID ph404. And we'll do if it exists, we'll run this. So yeah, probably I'll do that after. So we'll do ph404 dot enter text, and we'll set that to window dot location dot path name, and we'll terminate that. Do that. Do that. So now we'll host that. And now if I refresh, everything's working there. That code that we just put in will automatically change that. So if you do something like a random string, so that's how you kind of get dynamic ask 404 pages in something like a static site or Hugo. So I guess I'll end the video here. I'll probably do more Hugo videos in the future. I just I think that's something that's lacking on YouTube, and maybe I'll work to fill that void here. So if you liked it, like the video. If you want to subscribe, I guess I'll see you in the next one. Otherwise, have a good one.